On an ordinary Saturday morning, a teenage girl collapses in the middle of a crowded grocery store. Phones rise, people just watch, and panic spreads until one man, a widowed father working the checkout line, makes a choice no one expected. He risks everything: his job, his reputation, even his granddaughter's safety, to save a stranger's life right in front of the CEO of the company. But what begins as one act of courage sets off a firestorm: corporate backlash, whispered scandals, and even a fight to keep custody of the only family he has left. The powerful want him silenced. The community needs him to stand tall. And hidden in the CEO's own past lies a secret heartbreak that could change everything. When compassion collides with cold policy, one question remains. Will doing the right thing cost him everything he loves, or finally teach a broken town how to breathe again? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The Saturday morning sun slanted through Heartland Grocer's front windows, catching dust motes that danced above pyramids of fresh peaches. Gabe Morris punched in a produce code with practiced ease, his weathered hands steady on the register keys. The rhythm of the scanner's beep had become his heartbeat, constant, reliable, keeping time for a life rebuilt from fragments. "That'll be $47.50, he told Mrs. Chen, who'd been buying the same items every Saturday for 3 years. Green tea, ginger root, whatever fish looked freshest. Behind him, through the open break-room door, came the scratch of pencil on paper. Lydia hunched over her math homework, tongue poking between her teeth in concentration. 10 years old and already too serious, carrying her mother's eyes and her grandfather's stubborn chin. "Grandpa, what's 12 times 7? What's your calculator say?" Gabe called back, bagging Mrs. Chen's groceries with military precision, heavy items bottom, eggs cushioned between bread loaves. "You're my calculator." Mrs. Chen chuckled, pressing exact change into his palm. "Smart girl. My grandmother always said, 'Why waste battery when you have family?'" The store hummed with Saturday energy. Carts clattered against each other near the entrance where teenagers from the high school collected them for minimum wage and weekend freedom. The deli counter's number system chimed its electronic tune. Somewhere in produce, a child wailed about wanting grapes, not apples. Gabe's lane backed up 3 deep, 4 deep. He moved faster, muscle memory guiding his hands while his eyes tracked the store's pulse. 23 years in the Marines had taught him to read a room's energy, to feel when something shifted from normal to not quite right. 84, Lydia announced, triumphant. "Check it again, sweetheart." Near the sample station, Amina Rahman arranged tiny paper cups of some new trail mix the store was pushing. Her hijab today was deep purple, matching the college sweatshirt she wore over her Heartland uniform. The kid worked every shift she could get, saving for EMT training. She'd told Gabe about it last week while they restocked shelves after closing, how she wanted to help people, really help them, not just ring up their groceries. "Sir? Sir?" The customer in front of him waved a credit card. "You okay?" "Sorry." Gabe took the card, swiped it. His focus had drifted. That happened sometimes, especially on quiet mornings when the store's fluorescent lights reminded him of the hospital where Sarah had no. Not today. Lydia needed him present. The line grew longer. A woman in a charcoal blazer joined the queue, her silver hair swept into a style that probably cost more than Gabe made in a day. She held a single bottle of water and checked her phone repeatedly, thumbs scrolling with the intensity of someone managing empires from a grocery store line. Something about her jawline, the way she held her shoulders, spoke of boardrooms and decisions that affected thousands. "Free samples," Amina called out, her voice bright despite the morning rush. "New honey almond blend?" She popped one of the samples into her mouth, demonstrating for a hesitant customer. The smile on her face shifted suddenly, like a television switching channels. The sample cup tumbled from her fingers. Her hand flew to her throat. The tray crashed against linoleum. Amina's knees buckled. Time stretched like pulled taffy. Gabe watched her fold in on herself, a controlled building demolition in slow motion. Her head struck the floor with a sound that cut through the morning chatter like a scalpel. Silence rippled outward from that point of impact. The woman in the blazer dropped her water bottle. It rolled across the floor, stopping against Amina's outstretched hand. The woman's composure cracked like an egg against concrete. "She's not breathing." The words tore from her throat, raw and desperate. Her professional polish evaporated. She stood frozen, her face drained of color, staring at Amina's still form. Gabe's body moved before his mind caught up. His drawer was already locked, his feet already carrying him around the counter. Behind him, Lydia's homework fluttered to the floor. The crowd parted like water. "Call 911, he barked at the nearest teenager holding a phone. The kid just stared, thumb hovering over the screen, recording. "Now!" He dropped to his knees beside Amina. Her lips had already begun to blue at the edges, no rise and fall in her chest. The purple hijab had come loose, revealing dark hair plastered with sweat against her temple. The woman in the blazer knelt opposite him, her hands trembling. "Do something. Please, somebody do something. Anaphylaxis." Gabe recognized the signs, the swelling already starting around Amina's throat, the rash beginning to spread across her neck. His hand moved to his pocket, then stopped. Lydia's EpiPen. He carried it everywhere, had since the day she'd nearly died from a walnut hidden in a cookie at school. The backup pen sat in the manager's office, but the pharmacy didn't open for another hour, if Lydia needed it before then. Amina's face had gone gray. "Grandpa?" Lydia stood at the edge of the circle, math homework crushed in her small fist. The woman in the blazer grabbed his arm. "She's dying. She's dying right in front of us." 20 years of combat medicine crashed into him. Triage meant choosing who to save when you couldn't save everyone. But this wasn't Fallujah. This was just Saturday morning in a grocery store where nothing bad was supposed to happen. Gabe pulled the EpiPen from his pocket. Orange cap, blue to the sky. The instructions he'd memorized played in his mind. His granddaughter's lifeline weighed nothing in his hand. Training took over. Instinct older than thought. The store erupted. Voices crashed into each other like shopping carts in a parking lot. A mother yanked her children backward. An elderly man dropped his cane. Phones rose like salutes, their black eyes recording everything. "Somebody call 911. 3 people shouted it at once, but nobody moved. Gabe vaulted the checkout counter. His hip clipped the credit card reader, sending it spinning. Receipt tape unfurled behind him like a banner. "You," he pointed at the woman in the blazer. "Call 911. Now." She fumbled for her phone, fingers slipping on the glass. I can't, my hands." Behind him, sneakers squeaked against linoleum. Lydia sprinted toward the break room, her backpack bouncing. She knew. God bless her, she already knew what he might need. Gabe dropped beside Amina. 2 fingers to her neck, searching for the carotid. They're weak, thready, racing like a hummingbird's heart. Her throat had swollen, airways closing like a fist. The rash spread across her skin in angry red patches. Is she dead? A teenager held his phone inches from Amina's face. Oh man, is she actually dead? Gabe knocked the phone away. It skittered across the floor. "Hey, that's a iPhone 15. Back up! Everyone back up!" His Marine Sergeant voice cut through the chaos. The crowd shuffled backward, but the phone stayed raised. The woman in the blazer held her phone with both hands, still not dialing. Her whole body shook. Tears tracked through her makeup. Gabe locked eyes with her, held her gaze steady as a lighthouse beam. "Look at me. Breathe. In through your nose. Out through your mouth." She mimicked him, a shuddering breath. "Now dial. 911. Her thumb moved. 3 taps. Lydia skidded to her knees beside him, backpack already unzipped. She pulled out the yellow case with the EpiPen, the one they'd practiced with 100 times. The one that cost $400. The one they couldn't replace until Monday when his paycheck cleared. "Here, Grandpa." The case felt heavier than his old service rifle. Inside, the pen waited. One dose, one chance. The pharmacy wouldn't open for 53 minutes. If Lydia ate something, touched something, breathed in the wrong dust mote between now and then. Amina's lips had gone blue as fresh bruises. No time for doubt, only choices and consequences. He ripped open the case. Orange cap off. Blue to the sky, no, blue to the thigh. His hands moved with muscle memory older than thought. The needle punched through Amina's uniform pants. He counted to 3, holding it steady, while the epinephrine flooded her system. "Operator wants to know what's happening," the woman said. "Anaphylactic shock. 17-year-old female, EpiPen administered. Tell them to hurry." He positioned Amina flat, tilting her chin to open the airway. Still no breath. Her pulse fluttered like a moth against a window. "I need you to help." He looked at the woman. "What's your name?" "Eleanor." The word came out cracked. "Eleanor, I need you to give rescue breaths when I tell you. Can you do that?" "I don't. I've never—" "I'll teach you. Kneel here." He guided her to Amina's head. "Pinch her nose. Seal your mouth over hers. When I say breathe, give one breath. Watch her chest rise, just like blowing up a balloon." His hands found the proper position on Amina's chest. The CPR beat pounded in his head, staying alive, the BGs, 100 compressions per minute. He'd learned it treating a Marine in Kandahar while mortars fell like rain. 1, 2, 3. He counted aloud, compressions firm and rhythmic. Amina's ribs flexed under his palms. 28, 29, 30. "Breathe." Eleanor bent forward, her lips meeting Amina's. The breath went in. Amina's chest rose. "Good." Again. Another breath. Eleanor pulled back, her lipstick smeared. Gabe started compressions again. Sweat rolled down his neck. Around them, the crowd pressed closer despite his earlier warning. Someone narrated for their live stream. Someone else sobbed. The automatic doors whooshed open and closed, confused by the crowd. "Come on, kid. Come on." 60 compressions. 90. His shoulders burned. Then a gasp. Amina's body jerked. Her eyes flew open, wild and unfocused. She tried to sit up. "Easy, easy." Gabe held her shoulders. "You're okay. Don't move." She coughed, gulping air like she'd been underwater. The blue faded from her lips. Pink returned to her cheeks beneath the rash. Sirens screamed closer. Red and blue lights painted the windows. Eleanor sat back on her heels. Tears ran freely down her face, carving channels through foundation. She pressed a hand to her chest, breathing in ragged pulls. "You saved her," she whispered. "We saved her." The paramedics burst through the doors, gurney rattling. They swarmed Amina, checking vitals, starting an IV, asking rapid-fire questions Gabe answered on autopilot. They lifted her onto the stretcher. She reached for his hand as they wheeled her past. "Thank you," she mouthed. The crowd parted. Phones tracked the gurney's progress. Already Gabe could imagine the videos spreading online, tagged and shared and commented upon by strangers who'd never smell the mix of floor wax and fear that would forever define this moment. A small hand tugged his sleeve. "Grandpa?" Lydia's voice came out tiny. "What if I need my EpiPen?" He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her narrow shoulders. She smelled like pencil shavings and the strawberry shampoo they'd bought on sale. His granddaughter, his responsibility, his everything. "Then God help us," he whispered into her hair. But today she needed it more. The ER waiting room smelled of burnt coffee and industrial disinfectant. Lydia dozed against Gabe's shoulder, her math homework forgotten in her lap. Eleanor sat 3 chairs down, back rigid, scrolling through her phone with mechanical precision. Every few minutes, she'd glance at the doors leading to the treatment area. An hour crawled by. Then 2. A doctor in green scrubs pushed through the doors. "Family of Amina Rahman?" Gabe stood. "We're not family, but you're the ones who helped her?" The doctor's eyes crinkled behind wire-rimmed glasses. "She's stable. The epinephrine and CPR saved her life." "Another few minutes." He shook his head. "Her parents are with her now. She's asking for you." Eleanor's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering on the linoleum. She bent to retrieve it, hands trembling. "I need some air," she said. The automatic doors hissed open to the October evening. Eleanor stood under the harsh emergency bay lights, arms wrapped around herself despite her expensive blazer. Gabe followed, leaving Lydia curled in the chair. 23 years running this company. Eleanor's voice came out raw. I've never. In all the stores, all the incidents we track and measure and file away, she pressed her palms against her eyes. I haven't felt this helpless since. The words caught in her throat. Gabe waited. He'd learned in the service that silence made space for things that needed saying, "My son." The words fell like stones. 3 years ago, overdosed in a parking lot behind a convenience store. Someone filmed it, posted it online. 47,000 views before I could get it taken down. Nobody helped him. Nobody even called 911 until it was too late. She turned to face him. Mascara bled down her cheeks in thin black rivers. I watched strangers comment on my boy dying. They made jokes. They shared it like entertainment. And today, when that girl fell, when all those phones came out, I couldn't. I froze. Just like those people who watched Michael die. But you didn't stay frozen, Gabe said. You helped breathe life back into her. Eleanor laughed, bitter and sharp. Because you told me to. Because you took charge while I stood there like someone in shock, like a human being facing trauma. Movement caught their eye. A news van pulled into the patient loading zone, its satellite dish already extending. A reporter checked her reflection in the van's window while her cameraman shouldered his equipment. Mr. Morris? Mr. Gabriel Morris? The reporter's heels clicked across the asphalt. Channel 6, News. The video of you saving that young woman has already been viewed 2 million times. How does it feel to be a hero? The camera's light blazed on. Gabe raised a hand to shield his eyes. I'm no hero. Just did what needed doing. But you used your granddaughter's EpiPen. That's extraordinary. Anyone would have done the same. Eleanor stepped forward, smoothing her blazer, transforming back into the CEO despite her smeared makeup. Mr. Morris saved a life today. His quick thinking and calm under pressure exemplify everything Heartland Grocers stands for. Ma'am, are you Eleanor Whitmore, CEO of Heartland Grocers? The reporter's eyes lit up. You were there? You helped? Mr. Morris taught me CPR in real time. He turned a bystander into a helper. Eleanor's voice steadied, finding its executive rhythm. We owe him more than we can repay. Speaking of repayment, the reporter pivoted to Gabe. Will the company be offering any reward? Compensation for the EpiPen? Gabe looked directly into the camera. Don't want money. Then what? Free CPR and first aid classes? Here in town, at the store. Teach people what to do besides hold up phones. He paused, measuring his words. And fair chance hiring. Veterans coming home who need work. Families trying to get back on their feet. People with records who've paid their debt. Give them real opportunities, not just minimum wage afterthoughts. The reporter blinked. That's what you want? Not cash or that's what the community needs. Eleanor stared at him. The camera swung between them, capturing her stunned expression. Behind her practiced corporate mask, something shifted. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Mr. Morris is right, she said finally. Heartland Grocers will explore these initiatives immediately. Can you commit to that on camera? Eleanor's jaw tightened. Gabe could see the calculations running behind her eyes: liability, board approval of quarterly projections. Then she looked at him, really looked, like she was seeing past the uniform shirt and name tag for the first time. Yes, she said. I commit to making this happen. The reporter fired off more questions, but Gabe had already turned away. Through the glass doors, he could see Lydia stirring, rubbing her eyes. She needed dinner. They still had to figure out the EpiPen situation. Monday felt very far away, Eleanor appeared at his elbow after the news crew packed up. "Why?" she asked. "Why not take something for yourself? Your granddaughter will be fine. We'll manage. But this town, these people, they need more than one man with one EpiPen. They need to know how to save each other." She studied him like he was speaking a foreign language, like he'd proposed something impossible, like he could rewrite the company's story with his rough hands and quiet voice. "You're serious." "Always am." The automatic doors opened. Lydia stood there, backpack dragging from one shoulder. "Grandpa, I'm hungry." He took her hand. "Let's get you some dinner." As they walked toward the parking lot, Eleanor remained frozen under the emergency lights, staring after them like she'd witnessed something that didn't fit in spreadsheets or board meetings, something that might change everything. Steam rose from the scrambled eggs as Gabe pushed them around the pan. The kitchen phone rang for the fourth time in 10 minutes. He let it go to the machine again. Channel 9, wanting to speak with the hero cashier, he hit the stop button. Across the small kitchen table, Lydia poured syrup on her toast, creating a sticky lake. "That's enough syrup, sweetheart. Mrs. Rodriguez says you're famous." She licked her fingers. "She saw you on her phone at pickup yesterday. Eat your eggs before they get cold." The morning sun slanted through faded curtains, catching the dust motes that danced above their mismatched plates. Their rental house wasn't much peeling linoleum, a fridge that hummed too loud, but it held them, safe, together. "Will that girl be okay? The one who fell?" "Doctors say she'll be fine." Lydia pushed eggs around her plate. "What if I have an attack at school?" "Already called Nurse Harrison. She's got your backup in her office, remember? And the pharmacy opens at 9. We'll pick up your new one after school." "But what if—" "Hey!" He reached across the table, covered her small hand with his weathered one. "I've got you. Always." The phone rang again. This time Lydia grabbed it before he could stop her. Morris Residence. Her voice pitched high, playing secretary. "No, he's eating breakfast. No, I don't think he wants to be on TV." She hung up. Who was that? Some man from CNN. She returned to her eggs like discussing national news was normal for a 10-year-old. After walking Lydia to school, kissing her forehead despite her protests about being too old, Gabe drove to work. The Heartland Grocer's parking lot buzzed with more cars than usual for a Sunday afternoon. Inside, the break room erupted when he entered. "There he is!" Marcus from Produce slapped his back hard enough to sting. "Man of the hour." "Saw the video, Gabe." Teresa from the deli pressed a coffee into his hands. "My mama says you got angels watching you." Even Mr. Peterson, the usually gruff floor manager, nodded approval. "Hell of a thing you did." But not everyone smiled. Near the time clock, Gabe caught whispers between two newer hires. "Could have killed that kid using her pen." "Lawsuit waiting to happen." "Broke about 6 policies." He clocked in, tied his apron, and took his register. The afternoon crawled by in a parade of handshakes and thanks. Mrs. Chen pressed a 20 into his palm, despite his protests. Tom Bradley, whose son served in Afghanistan, saluted him at checkout. 3 different customers filmed him bagging groceries, like watching him scan soup was suddenly newsworthy. Yet between the praise, those whispers grew. A woman he didn't recognize muttered about proper channels while buying cigarettes. Another customer asked loudly if the store's insurance would cover vigilante medicine. By shift's end, his shoulders ached from more than lifting grocery bags. The Bennett house sat 3 doors down from his, its porch light already glowing in the twilight. Ruth opened the door before he could knock, her silver hair pinned back, flour dusting her hands. "Knew you'd be by. Charles is in the kitchen. Made your favorite tuna casserole." Their house smelled like his childhood coffee brewing, something always baking, lemon furniture polish. Charles sat at the kitchen table, his pastoral hands folded over a worn Bible. At 78, he moved slower these days, but his eyes remained sharp. "Sit, son. You look tired." Ruth set down 3 plates while Charles said grace. The familiar ritual settled something in Gabe's chest. "Been quite a day," Charles said, serving the casserole. "Quite a weekend. Just did what anyone would." "No." Ruth's voice carried the steel of a former schoolteacher. "You did what was right. There's a difference." They ate in comfortable silence until Charles set down his fork. "You know there'll be pushback. Already started. Folks at work talking about policies, lawsuits. Courage always costs something, Gabriel." Charles's deep voice filled the small kitchen. Moses argued with God about his stutter. David was too young. Mary was unmarried. Every act of righteousness faces resistance. This isn't biblical. Just help someone who needed it. Ruth reached across the table, squeezed his hand. "That's exactly biblical, dear." They talked until the casserole grew cold about Amina's family, about Eleanor's strange vulnerability, about what might come next. The Bennetts had walked beside him through Amy's death, through becoming Lydia's guardian, through nights when grief felt heavier than his Marine pack ever had. "That company? They got lawyers," Charles said. "They got policies thick as phone books. But you got something more." "What's that?" "You got right on your side. And you got us." Back home, Gabe found Lydia in flannel pajamas, homework spread across her bed. "Grandpa?" She didn't look up from her math worksheet. "If you broke rules to save that girl, will they arrest you?" His chest tightened. "Who said that?" "Kids at school. Brandon's mom works at the store. She said you could lose your job, or worse." He sat on her bed's edge, the mattress creaking. "Come here." She crawled into his lap, still small enough to fit despite her lengthening legs. Sometimes rules don't account for every situation. Sometimes doing right means taking risks. But what if they take you away, like they took Mom? The question gutted him. Amy hadn't been taken, she'd left, chosen pills over pain, over them. But to Lydia, gone was gone. "Nobody's taking me anywhere. We're stuck together, remember? You and me. Promise?" "Promise." After tucking her in, Gabe sat at the kitchen table. Amy's photograph watched from the shelf, her bright smile, Lydia's same stubborn chin. The prayer came out fractured, barely voiced. "Lord, I'm not asking for myself, but that little girl. She needs stability. She needs me whole and here. Give me strength for what's coming. Help me stand." The phone rang again. He unplugged it. Tomorrow would bring whatever it brought. Tonight, his granddaughter slept safe down the hall, and that was enough. It had to be. The next afternoon, Heartland Grocers transformed into a stage. News vans crowded the parking lot. Inside, employees gathered near customer service, their usual Tuesday torpor replaced by electric anticipation. Eleanor Whitmore entered through the automatic doors like she owned the air itself. Navy suit pressed sharp, silver hair gleaming under fluorescence, she moved with the precision of someone who'd climbed from food stamps to corner offices. 2 assistants flanked her. 3 reporters followed. Gabe stood with the other cashiers, apron fresh, name tag straight. His hand stayed steady, though cameras swung his way. "Mr. Morris," Eleanor's voice carried across the store. She extended her hand, her grip firm, professional. The cameras clicked like insects. "Ma'am, I wanted to personally thank you, on behalf of Heartland Grocers, for your extraordinary actions this weekend." The gathered employees murmured approval. Someone started clapping. Soon the whole floor applauded. Eleanor raised her hand for quiet. "Your quick thinking and selfless choice saved Amina Rahman's life. You exemplified the values we aspire to: community, courage, compassion. More cameras, more applause. Which is why," Eleanor continued, "Heartland Grocers will fund comprehensive CPR and first aid training for all employees and interested community members, free of charge." The crowd stirred. This was real money, real commitment. "Furthermore, we'll explore expanded fair chance hiring initiatives, ensuring our stores reflect and serve the communities that support us." Mr. Morris reminded us that heroism doesn't require a title, just heart. She turned to Gabe, those cool executive eyes warming slightly. "Your suggestions will shape company policy going forward." The photo op lasted 10 minutes. Handshakes, smiles, sound bites. Eleanor played her part flawlessly, the reformed executive learning from her cashier. The narrative wrote itself. Then Caleb Rourke appeared at Gabe's elbow, manager's office. 5 minutes. The office smelled like burnt coffee and copy toner. Eleanor sat behind the desk, her public warmth evaporating. Caleb closed the door, shutting out the celebration. "We have a problem." Caleb's voice could have frozen water. 48 years old, built like a tennis player, he radiated the particular coldness of men who confused cruelty with strength. Eleanor's jaw tightened. "There's no problem. I just announced." "You announced what sounds good. Now let's discuss reality." Caleb opened his tablet, swiped through documents. "Mr. Morris administered prescription medication without authorization. He performed medical procedures without certification. He exposed Heartland to massive liability. He saved a life. He broke 6 corporate policies, 7 state regulations, possibly federal law." Gabe's stomach dropped, but he kept his face neutral. "Old Marine training never let them see you sweat. The video is everywhere," Eleanor argued. "The public loves him. The public is fickle. One lawsuit from Amina's family, one investigation from the state medical board, and your hero becomes our nightmare." Caleb's fingers drummed the desk. "He needs to be suspended. Immediately." "Absolutely not." "Eleanor," Caleb's tone shifted, almost pitying. "The board's already asking questions about your judgment, your emotional investment in this situation." The threat hung between them like a blade. Eleanor's composure cracked slightly. "You're talking about destroying a good man. I'm talking about protecting the company. And you, if you're smart enough to listen." She looked at Gabe, something desperate in her eyes. An apology, maybe. Or a plea he couldn't answer. 2 weeks suspension, Caleb said. "Paid. We'll call it administrative leave while we review protocols." Quiet. No press. "And if I refuse?" Gabe asked. Caleb smiled, the expression never reaching his eyes. "Then things get complicated. For everyone." Dinner that night was mac and cheese from a box, Lydia's favorite when the world felt uncertain. She pushed noodles around her plate, unusually quiet. "Mrs. Henderson says you're famous now. Mrs. Henderson talks too much. She says you might get a medal, like from when you were a Marine." "No medals for doing what's decent, sweetheart." The knock came at 7:47. Firm. Official. Through the peephole, Gabe saw a woman in a beige pantsuit, clipboard in hand, expression carved from stone. "Mr. Gabriel Morris?" "Yes?" "Patricia Kolb, Child Protective Services." She held up identification. "We've received a concerning report." The words hit like shrapnel. Behind him, Lydia appeared in the hallway. Math homework forgotten. "What report?" "An allegation of medical neglect." Patricia's voice stayed professionally neutral, which made it worse. "Specifically, that you endangered your granddaughter by using her prescription EpiPen on another person, leaving her without necessary medication. She wasn't in immediate danger, that's to be determined." "May I come in?" Every instinct screamed no, but refusing would look worse. Patricia entered, her eyes cataloging everything. The tidy living room, the dishes drying by the sink. Lydia's drawings on the refrigerator. "Lydia?" Patricia's voice gentled slightly. "Could you wait in your room while I talk with your grandfather?" Lydia pressed against Gabe's leg. "No. It's okay, baby. Just for a few minutes." "Grandpa?" The fear in her voice broke him. She'd lost her mother, watched her world collapse once already. Now strangers with clipboards threatened what remained. "Go on, I'll be right here." She walked backward down the hall, eyes never leaving his face. Patricia opened her folder. "Mr. Morris, we need to discuss your guardianship." Patricia Kolb's questions cut deep and precise. Previous addresses, Lydia's medical history, the location of every EpiPen in the house, Now 0, until the pharmacy opened Monday. Each answer Gabe gave seemed to tighten an invisible noose. "You understand this is preliminary," Patricia said finally, closing her folder. "But given the serious nature of the allegation—" "Who made it?" "That's confidential." Of course it was. Some anonymous coward with a phone and an opinion about how he should have let Amina die with proper documentation. After Patricia left, promising a follow-up visit within 72 hours, Gabe stood in Lydia's doorway. She'd pulled her blanket over her head, a small mountain of worry. "Hey." The mountain shifted. One eye appeared. "Nobody's taking you anywhere. You hear me? Promise? Promise." But promises felt fragile now, breakable things in a world of clipboards and protocols. Sleep never came. Gabe paced the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear at 2 a.m. "They can't do this." Maya Ortiz's voice crackled with fury despite the hour. "Using necessary medication in an emergency? Any judge with sense, since when does sense matter?" "It matters when I'm in the room." Maya had been fighting these battles since law school, turning her working-class rage into legal briefs that made prosecutors sweat. "Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. I'll be there Monday morning." "Maya." "No. You saved that girl's life. They want to punish you for having a heart? They'll have to go through me." The conviction in her voice loosened something in his chest. But in the darkness, watching headlights sweep across the ceiling, doubt crept in. What if fighting back made things worse? What if Lydia paid for his principles? Dawn came gray and reluctant. Gabe made pancakes, Lydia's second favorite, trying for normal while the world tilted sideways. At school drop-off, her hand stayed in his longer than usual. "You picking me up today?" "Always. Even if—" She stopped. "Even if the world ends, I'll be right here at 3:15. She squeezed harder, then ran toward the building without looking back. The store felt different. Same fluorescent lights, same morning rush, but the air had changed. Conversation stopped when he passed. Eyes that once held admiration now carried questions. The manager intercepted him at the time clock. "Gabe, office." The suspension notice lay on the desk like a verdict. 2 weeks, effective immediately. Pending review of policy violations. "This is garbage, and you know it," the manager said quietly. "But my hands are tied." "I know. For what it's worth, everyone here thinks I know that too." Gabe signed where indicated. Each letter felt like surrender. Boxing up his locker took 5 minutes. 10 years reduced to a cardboard box. His name tag, the thank you cards customers had given him over the years. Lydia's school photo, edges worn from handling. The walk to the exit stretched forever. Whispers followed him. Heard CPS came to his house. Used his granddaughter's medicine. Rules exist for a reason. Outside. Eleanor waited by his beat-up Ford, elegant even in her distress. "Gabe, don't." He set down the box. "Whatever corporate speech you've prepared, they'll destroy me if I fight this." Her composure cracked completely. The board's already circling. One wrong move and I'm gone. And then what? Caleb takes over? Someone worse? "So you're choosing survival." "I'm choosing." She stopped, shoulders shaking. "I don't know what I'm choosing. My son died because people followed rules instead of helping. And now I'm doing the same thing." The parking lot stretched between them, empty of easy answers. "You could have helped him," Gabe said quietly. "Your son. If someone had just—" "Don't." Her voice turned sharp. "You think I don't know that? You think I don't replay every decision, every missed sign?" She wiped her eyes, smearing expensive makeup. "I owe you more than I can say. But I'm trapped in this cage of policies and procedures and board meetings where humanity is a liability." "Then break the cage." "With what? Good intentions?" "They'll eat me alive." Gabe picked up his box. "Then, we fight in the open. Let people see what their policies really mean. You don't understand what you're risking. I understand exactly what I'm risking. He thought of Lydia's hand in his, holding tight. Question is, what are you willing to risk? Eleanor had no answer, or maybe too many. The walk to Lydia's school took forever. Parents stared. Some offered thumbs up. Others looked away. The court of public opinion was in session, verdict pending. Lydia emerged at 3:15 exactly, scanning the crowd until she found him. Relief flooded her face. They walked home under a sky-threatening rain, her backpack bouncing with each step. Amy's mom says you're in trouble. Amy's mom should mind her business. Are you? The question hung between them. Gabe wanted to lie, to promise everything would be fine, but she deserved better than comfortable fiction. Yeah, baby, I might be. Her hand found his, small and fierce. Then I'm in trouble too. They walked on, grandfather and granddaughter, while storm clouds gathered overhead. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and hearings and battles he might not win, but tonight they were together. Tonight, that was enough. The weight pressed down suspension, investigation, the machinery of systems designed to grind good intentions into dust. But Lydia's hand in his felt like resistance. The battle had only begun. Morning light filtered through lace curtains in the Bennett living room, catching dust motes that drifted like tiny prayers. Ruth's coffee was strong enough to wake the dead, which Gabe needed after another sleepless night. You look terrible, Ruth said, refilling his mug. Thanks. Really needed to hear that. Charles lowered his newspaper. Truth in love, Gabriel. Truth in love. The doorbell rang. Maya Ortiz entered like weather, sudden and undeniable. Her briefcase hit the coffee table with purpose. Good. Everyone's here. She spread folders across Ruth's crocheted doilies. We have work to do. Coffee first? Ruth offered. Coffee during time's not our friend. Maya pulled out legal pads covered in her sharp handwriting. CPS investigation, wrongful suspension, corporate liability. We're fighting on 3 fronts. 4, Gabe corrected. The court of public opinion's already in session. Maya nodded. Which is why we can't just play defense. We need to change the game entirely. Charles set down his paper. Meaning? Meaning we don't just fight for Gabe's job and custody. We fight for something bigger. Something that makes their position untenable. Ruth settled into her armchair, the one that had held 40 years of worried parishioners. The CPR classes. We talked about this, Maya. Free training, right here at church. Good start, but not enough. Maya turned to Gabe. The church is one thing, but imagine if we got the store itself to host them. Right where it happened, where everyone shops. They just suspended me. You think they'll, not them, the community. We organize, we pressure, we make it impossible to ignore. Charles leaned forward, fingers steepled. Turn the grocery store into holy ground. Exactly. Show that compassion belongs in commerce, that helping each other isn't a liability, it's an asset. Gabe stared at his coffee, watching cream swirl into spirals. You're talking about taking on a corporation. I'm talking about David and Goliath. And last I checked, we know how that story ends. Ruth reached across to pat Gabe's knee. We've faced worse odds. Remember when they tried to close the food pantry? Or when the council wanted to rezone the church? This is different. They have lawyers, PR teams. We have something better, Charles interrupted. We have righteousness. And Ruth's casseroles. Despite everything, Gabe almost smiled. Maya pulled out another folder. Here's what I'm proposing. We create the Breath Project. Community-funded, volunteer-run. CPR and first aid training for everyone, seniors, teenagers, immigrants, everyone. We start at church but make it clear our goal is the store. And if Heartland refuses, then we train their customers anyway. Every person who shops there becomes equipped to save a life. We make their liability argument meaningless. Ruth was already making lists. I can get the church ladies mobilized by noon. Marge alone knows half the town. Veterans too, Charles added. Plenty of medics from Iraq and Afghanistan looking for purpose. They talked through lunch, plans crystallizing. Maya would handle legal strategy. Ruth would organize volunteers. Charles would reach out to other churches, building a coalition. And Gabe, you're the face of this, Maya said. Like it or not, you're the story, the grandfather who risked everything to save a life. I just did what anyone would. No. Maya's voice cut sharp. Most people would have followed rules, would have waited, would have let that girl die rather than risk their job or their granddaughter's safety. You didn't. Own that. That evening, Gabe stood at the stove, stirring spaghetti sauce while Lydia did homework at the kitchen table. Mr. Chen says we're studying the Constitution next week. Good. Know your rights. Do you know yours? He turned to find her watching him, pencil suspended. Maya's teaching me. Is she nice? She's fierce. Sometimes that's better than nice. Lydia nodded, processing this wisdom. Like when you saved Amina. That wasn't nice to the rules, but it was right. Yeah, baby. Exactly like that. He plated dinner, simple but warm. They ate quietly until Lydia spoke again. Amy's mom is wrong. About? She said you're selfish for using my EpiPen. But I think sharing medicine is like sharing food. It's what we're supposed to do. Gabe's throat tightened. When did you get so wise? Tuesdays, mostly, after dishes, after homework, after prayers that included Amina and Eleanor, and even Caleb. Help him be less mean, God. Gabe sat alone at the kitchen table. He pulled out his Marine Challenge coin, worn smooth from 20 years of pocket carry. The eagle was barely visible now, but the weight remained constant. Lydia appeared in the doorway, pajama-clad and sleepy. Can't sleep? Wanted to say something. Okay. She padded over, bare feet silent on linoleum. I'm proud of you. Not just for saving Amina, for fighting back, for showing everyone what's right. She kissed his cheek and disappeared back to bed, leaving him alone with the coin and the weight of her faith in him. He pinned the coin to his pocket, feeling its familiar pressure against his hip. Duty never really ends, he murmured to the empty kitchen. Tomorrow would bring the first meeting, the first real step towards something bigger than his own troubles. Ruth would have the church basement ready. Maya would have strategies mapped. Charles would open with prayer that could move mountains, or at least corporate policy. And Gabe would stand before his community, suspended but not broken, offering to teach them how to breathe life back into each other. The coin pressed against his pocket, a small weight holding him steady. Duty never really ended. It just changed shape. 2 days later, the church fellowship hall hummed with the particular energy of a community choosing action over fear. Folding chairs scraped linoleum as neighbors filed in, their voices mixing with the bubble of percolator coffee and the metallic ping of spoons against casserole dishes. Ruth's famous mac and cheese sat beside Maria Lopez's tamales, Old Mister. Kim's dumplings next to the Johnson's cornbread, the potluck table, a map of the neighborhood itself. Gabe stood near the door, greeting arrivals, when he spotted them. Amina, walking slowly, carefully, her father's protective hand at her elbow. She wore a simple blue hijab that made her look younger than 17, and her smile, though genuine, carried the fragility of someone recently returned from an edge. Mr. Gabe. Her voice came soft, barely above the hall's chatter. Before he could respond, her father stepped forward, a compact man with calloused hands and eyes that held decades of hard-earned caution. You gave my daughter back to me. The words came thick with emotion. When everyone else stood, watching, filming, you acted. You gave up your granddaughter's medicine. His voice broke. Sir, Rashid, please. Rashid, I did what anyone. No. Rashid gripped Gabe's shoulder. Not anyone. You. Amina moved closer, and for a moment they stood in a triangle of shared understanding, the saved, the saver, and the grateful witness. Is Lydia here? Amina asked. In the corner, drawing. Gabe pointed to where his granddaughter hunched over paper and markers, tongue poking out in concentration. They walked over together. Lydia looked up, studied Amina with that direct assessment children specialize in. You're the one who needed my medicine. Yes. Good. I was saving it for someone special. She held up her creation, a hand-drawn card featuring a somewhat lopsided heart surrounded by band-aids with smiley faces. Get well soon marched across the top in careful letters. Amina accepted it like a treasure, pressing it to her chest. It's perfect. I know, Lydia said simply, returning to her coloring. The hall filled steadily. Veterans from the VFW still wearing their caps. The Korean church choir. 3 generations of the Jackson family. Teachers, mechanics, retired nurses, the forgotten backbone of a forgotten town. Movement near the back door caught Gabe's attention. Eleanor Whitmore slipped in, transformed from the corporate warrior he'd seen at press conferences. She wore faded jeans and an old college sweatshirt, her silver hair pulled back simply. She chose a seat in the last row, shoulders hunched as if trying to disappear. Charles called the meeting to order with 3 gentle raps on the podium. Friends, we're here because one man's courage showed us what we're missing, not just as a store or a company, but as a community. Maya stood, all business despite her casual clothes. We're calling it the Breath Project. Simple name, clear mission, teach everyone how to save a life. She outlined the plan on a whiteboard Ruth had borrowed from Sunday school: CPR certification, first aid basics, how to use an EpiPen, how to recognize stroke, heart attack, overdose. We start where people already gather: churches, community centers, and heartland grocers, Ruth added firmly. That store is this town's real community center, whether corporate knows it or not. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone mentioned liability. Another wondered about permission. That's when Eleanor stood. The room turned, recognizing her despite the casual clothes. Whispers sparked and died. She cleared her throat, started again. I'm Eleanor Whitmore. I am CEO of Heartland Grocers. Silence stretched taut. 3 days ago I watched a man save a life while I stood frozen. Watched him risk everything while I could barely remember to call 911. Her hands trembled at her sides. My company has policies, procedures, risk assessments. None of them mattered when that young woman couldn't breathe. She looked directly at Amina, then Gabe. The Breath Project will have Heartland's full support. Training space in our break rooms. Paid time for employees who want to learn, whatever you need. Corporate won't like that, someone called out. Eleanor's smile held an edge. Corporate will have to adapt, or find a new CEO. The room exhaled collectively. Plans tumbled forward, training schedules, volunteer instructors. Ruth promised to coordinate refreshments because people learn better when they're fed. Charles would handle outreach to other congregations. Veterans volunteered as instructors. As discussions swirled, Ruth moved to the old upright piano in the corner. Her fingers found familiar chords, and she began to hum. Others joined, tentative at first, then stronger. Breathe on me, breath of God. Fill me with life anew. The hymn rose, carried by voices that had sung through recessions and plant closures, through births and burials. Even Eleanor, in her back row seat, moved her lips to words learned in a childhood she'd thought she'd outgrown. Later, in his kitchen, Gabe found Lydia at the table, surrounded by markers and paper. She'd drawn a pair of lungs, anatomically ambitious if not accurate, with arrows pointing to various parts. The Breath Project dominated the top in rainbow letters. That's really something, baby. It's for the bulletin board at church. Ruth said, we need advertising. He studied her work, the earnest imperfection of it, the hope embedded in every colorful line. You know what you did was brave, right? Sharing your EpiPen? She looked up. You taught me. We share what we have. Even if it's all we have. He kissed her forehead, inhaling the simple sweetness of her strawberry shampoo. Bedtime. She gathered her markers carefully, then paused. Grandpa, we're going to win, aren't we? Yeah, baby, we are. After tucking her in, after checking locks and setting alarms, Gabe stood in Lydia's doorway watching her sleep. The Get Well card from Amina was propped on her nightstand, and her Breath Project flyer lay carefully protected under a book. "Thank you," he whispered to the darkness, to God, to his granddaughter's courage that made his own possible. Tomorrow would bring new battles, Caleb's resistance, corporate pushback, the custody review still looming. But tonight, hope hummed in his chest, steady as a heartbeat, strong as the breath that filled his lungs. By Friday afternoon, the Heartland Grocer's break room had transformed. Gone were the usual scattered tables and leftover birthday cake. In their place, 3 CPR mannequins lay on blue mats, donated by the local Red Cross chapter. Ruth had arrived early with Charles, hanging hand-lettered signs, "The Breath Project, everyone can save a life." The mannequins looked oddly peaceful faces forever frozen in neutral expressions, chests waiting for the rhythm of practice compressions. Ruth tested one, pressing down with surprising strength for her 78 years. 2 inches deep, she announced to the empty room. "That's what the nice Red Cross lady said. Don't be shy about it." Charles arranged folding chairs in a semicircle while Gabe checked the AED trainer for the dozenth time. His hands moved with military precision, but his stomach churned. First day back in the store since suspension. Even with Eleanor's protection, whispers followed him through the aisles. People trickled in. First came the seniors' Ruth's book club, Charles's prayer group, then younger faces, a single mother who worked deli, 2 stalkers from the night shift. Amina arrived with her father, wearing scrubs she'd bought with her last paycheck. "Too eager?" she asked Gabe, smoothing the dark blue fabric. "Perfect. You look like you belong in them." Eleanor appeared in the doorway, hesitant. She'd swapped her usual blazer for a simple cardigan, but uncertainty clung to her like perfume. Gabe waved her in. She chose a spot near the back, notebook clutched in her lap. "Welcome, everyone." Charles's voice carried the same warmth he'd used for 40 years of sermons. "Before we begin, let's center ourselves." Heads bowed reflexively. "Lord, bless these hands that learn to heal. Bless these hearts that choose to help. Make us instruments of your mercy. Amen." "Amen," the room echoed. Ruth took charge with teacherly authority. Right then, who knows what CPR stands for? A few hands rose. She called on Lydia, who'd claimed front row center. "Cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Gold star for you, sweetie. Now, who wants to tell me why we do it?" An older man, veteran's cap permanent on his head, spoke up. "Keep blood moving when the heart can't." "Exactly. You're not restarting the heart, that's what the professionals do. You're buying time, being the bridge between crisis and cure." She demonstrated on the first mannequin, counting aloud. Her compressions were steady, rhythmic. Staying alive by the Bee Gees, that's your tempo. Or if you prefer hymns, Blessed Assurance works too. Nervous laughter rippled through the group. "Now, everyone find a mannequin, 3 to each. Don't be shy." Gabe guided a trembling grandmother to position her hands correctly. "Lock your elbows. Use your body weight, not just your arms." The woman pressed tentatively. "Harder," Gabe encouraged. "You won't hurt them. Feels wrong, pushing so hard. Broken ribs heal. Death doesn't." She pressed deeper, finding her rhythm. Across the room, Amina coached 2 teenagers with natural confidence. She'd already completed online training, she explained, preparing for EMT certification. "I'm going to do this for real," she told them. "Save lives, like Mr. Gabe saved mine." Lydia struggled with compressions, her 10-year-old arms too short for proper leverage. Ruth brought a step stool and suddenly she could manage it, counting proudly. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. The doorway filled with curious faces. Customers paused with their carts. Some stepped inside, drawn by the energy. A reporter from the local paper snapped photos, catching Ruth mid-compression, arms locked, determination etched on her face. Eleanor had moved closer, no longer hiding in back. When Ruth called for volunteers to practice recovery position, Eleanor's hand rose. She knelt beside a mannequin, following Amina's instructions, rolling it carefully onto its side. "Good," Amina said. "Now check the airway is clear." Eleanor's fingers moved delicately, as if the mannequin might break. Something shifted in her expression concentration, replacing the grief she usually carried. "My turn." Lydia bounced forward, demonstrating with the confidence of a child who'd watched her grandfather prepare all week. As the hour wound down, Charles gathered everyone back to the circle. "What we're doing here matters. Not just the techniques, though those save lives, but the choice to show up. To say, 'I won't be a bystander.'" Heads nodded. The grandmother Gabe had coached wiped her eyes. "Same time next week?" Ruth asked. A chorus of agreement rose. People exchanged phone numbers, promised to practice, to bring friends. The deli worker signed up to help with setup. The veterans offered to teach trauma response. As the crowd dispersed, Eleanor approached Gabe. "This is what you imagined, isn't it, when you asked for classes?" "Honestly, it's better." She looked at the mannequins, the signs, the lingering groups still practicing. "Good grows," she said softly, then louder. "Good grows." That evening, Gabe and Lydia celebrated with strawberry ice cream from Sally's Dairy Bar, eating in their kitchen while rehashing every moment. "Did you see Mrs. Henderson's face when she got the compressions right? And Mr. Charles, doing the recovery position, thought his knees might not make it back up." Lydia laughed, ice cream on her nose. The house felt alive with her chatter, bright with possibility. Later, tucking her into bed, Gabe smoothed her hair back. "Proud of you today. You were brave, trying everything. Ruth said I'm a natural teacher. Maybe I'll be like her when I grow up, or like Amina and EMT. You can be anything, baby." She yawned, eyes already closing. "Grandpa?" "Yeah? We planted something good today, didn't we?" He kissed her forehead, breathing in her sweetness, her hope. "Yeah, baby, we did. And see, good grows." A week later, the produce section stood transformed. Display tables rolled away, pyramids of apples relocated, leaving space for 200 folding chairs that Ruth's church crew had hauled in before dawn. By 6 o'clock, every seat held someone: weathered farmers still in work boots, young mothers bouncing babies, teenagers slouching until their grandmothers nudged them upright. Gabe stood behind a simple podium, index cards trembling in his hands. His Marine Challenge coin, the one he'd thought lost, now sat polished in his pocket. Amina had returned it yesterday with a shy smile, buffed to a shine he hadn't seen since his discharge. "Thank you all for coming," he began, then cleared his throat. "Start again, stronger. A month ago, this was just a grocery store. Tonight, it's something more." He introduced the first speaker, Marcus Webb, Iraq veteran, construction worker, father of 3. Marcus gripped the podium edges. "5 years back, I couldn't leave my house. PTSD had me trapped. Loud noises, crowds, they'd send me under the bed like I was back in Fallujah." His voice steadied. "Learning CPR gave me purpose, knowing I could save someone, that my hands could give life instead of—" He stopped, swallowed. "It brought me back to the world." Next came Amina's father, Hassan Rahman, still in his taxi driver's uniform. "When my daughter collapsed, I was 20 miles away. By the time I reached the hospital, she was breathing again. Breathing." His accent thickened with emotion. "In our country, we fled because no one would help us. Here, a stranger used his granddaughter's medicine to save mine. This is America to me. Not the newspapers, not the politics. This." Ruth took the podium with teacherly poise, no notes needed. "50 years I've lived in this town, taught your children, buried your parents, celebrated your weddings, but somewhere along the way we started living by policies instead of principles, started filming troubles instead of fixing them." She looked straight at the phone in a teenager's hand until he lowered it. "Compassion isn't complicated. You see someone drowning, You throw them a rope. You don't check their insurance first. You don't wait for permission. You act. The crowd murmured agreement. In the back row, Caleb Rourke shifted uncomfortably, his risk assessment reports useless against such simple truth. Eleanor rose from her front row seat. She'd chosen a simple blue dress, no power suit, no corporate armor. Her hands shook as she adjusted the microphone. 3 years ago, my son Michael died of an overdose in a shopping center parking lot. The store went silent. Even the babies seemed to pause. Security footage showed 17 people walked past him. 4 stopped to take pictures. No one called 911 until it was too late. She gripped the podium, knuckles white. I blamed them for months, hated them. But then I realized I'd built a company that taught them to be bystanders. Policies about liability, protocols about not getting involved. We trained people to protect themselves instead of each other. Her voice cracked. She pushed through. Gabe Morris broke our rules. He used his granddaughter's EpiPen without authorization. He performed medical procedures without certification. He did everything our lawyers say you shouldn't do. She found Gabe's eyes. And because he did, Amina Rahman is alive. Preparing to become an EMT, ready to save others. She straightened. CEO bearing returning but transformed, effective immediately. Heartland Grocers will provide free CPR and first aid training to all employees and community members. We're establishing the Michael Whitmore Memorial Scholarship for EMT training, and we're launching a Fair Chance hiring initiative because everyone deserves the opportunity to contribute. The applause started slowly, building to thunder. Eleanor stood there, tears streaming, as strangers became witnesses to her pain and her promise. Amina approached the podium, something clutched in her fist. Mr. Gabe, you dropped this. That day. She opened her hand, revealing his Marine Challenge coin, gleaming like new. I had it cleaned. Polished. She pressed it into his palm, both her hands covering his. You taught me to breathe. Not just that day, but every day since. How to breathe through fear, through discrimination, through people saying, I don't belong. Her young voice carried surprising strength. You showed this whole town that breathing is something we do together. That your breath could become mine when I needed it. The silence held, sacred. Then someone stood, another. Like dominoes tipping, the entire room rose, veterans saluting, mothers clutching children, teenagers abandoning their studied coolness to applaud. Gabe stood at the podium, tears flowing freely, his granddaughter's medicine having saved a life, his simple act having changed a community. Lydia broke from Ruth's side, racing to hug his waist. He lifted her up, this child who'd sacrificed her safety for a stranger, and faced the town that had become family. The ovation continued, but underneath the clapping, he heard something else. The steady rhythm of hearts beating together, of a community remembering how to breathe. The phone's harsh buzz pulled Gabe from shallow sleep at 5:47 a.m. He fumbled for it, squinting at the screen. Maya's name glowed above a text. Don't check the news. Coming over. But warnings came too late for men trained to face threats head-on. Gabe opened his news app. Hero Cashier's criminal past exposed, troubled history. Morris's daughter died of overdose after years of addiction. Pattern of recklessness. Man who saved teen has juvenile record. His coffee mug slipped, brown liquid spreading across yesterday's courage like judgment. The articles contained everything. The shoplifting arrest when he was 15, hungry and stupid, his daughter Sarah's 3 rehab stints, the custody battle before she died. Details that belonged to grief, not headlines. Grandpa? Lydia stood in the doorway, sleep rumpled, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Why are you up? Just thinking, sweetheart. He mopped up coffee with paper towels, hands steady through practiced will. Want pancakes at Murphy's? Murphy's Diner had served the same menu since 1952. Usually, walking in felt like coming home. Today, Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Forks paused over eggs. Old Jim Crawford, who Gabe had helped fix his truck last month, suddenly found his newspaper fascinating. "Corner booth's open," Betty the waitress said, not meeting his eyes. The warmth that usually colored her voice had chilled to professional courtesy. They slid into cracked vinyl seats. Lydia ordered chocolate chip pancakes, same as always, but kept glancing at the other diners. "Why's everyone acting weird?" "Just one of those mornings." Gabe managed to smile. "Eat up. School starts soon." At Riverside Elementary, the usual chaos of drop-off felt different. Parents who normally waved now busied themselves with phones. Mrs. Henderson actually stepped between her son and Lydia when the boy tried to share his Pokemon cards. "Come along, Tyler. We're running late." "But Mom," I promised. "Now." Lydia's face crumpled. Gabe knelt, pulling her close. "It's not about you, baby girl. Is it about what you did? Saving Amina? Something like that?" She pulled back, fierce in the way only children could be. "Then they're stupid." "Hey, we don't call people stupid. Even when they are?" He had no answer for that kind of truth. The day dragged. Gabe cleaned the garage, fixed the leaky faucet, anything to keep busy. 3 reporters knocked. He didn't answer. Maya came by with legal papers, face grim. CPS moved up the hearing. Tomorrow morning. They're claiming pattern of recklessness, citing the leaked records. Can they take her? Not if I have anything to say about it. But worry creased her eyes. School pickup was worse. Lydia emerged alone while clusters of children streamed past. Her teacher, Miss Samuels, walked her to the gate personally. "She had a rough day," Miss Samuels said quietly. "Some parents called, made requests about classroom arrangements. They want her separated from their kids. I won't do it, but you should know." Lydia stayed silent the whole drive. At home, she went straight to her room. Gabe let her be, knowing sometimes hurt needed space to breathe. Eleanor's call came at sunset. "Gabe, I'm so sorry." The board held an emergency meeting. "They're freezing everything, the training, the hiring initiative. They say the negative press puts the company at risk." "And you? What do you say?" Silence. Then, voice breaking, "That I'm a coward, that I'm failing you like I failed my son. Eleanor, I have to go. The lawyers are here." The line went dead. Gabe was heating leftover soup when Lydia's scream pierced the evening. He ran outside to find her staring at the garage door. Red spray paint spelled out ugly words, terrorist lovers, and worse, slurs about Amina's family that made his stomach turn. "What does that mean?" Lydia's voice was small. "It means some people are scared and angry and don't know what to do with those feelings." "Are we terrorist lovers?" "No, baby. We're people who help other people." That's all. But she was crying now, really crying, the kind that came from deep wells of confusion and fear. That night, after 2 stories and 3 lullabies, Lydia finally settled. But Gabe heard her through the thin walls later, sobbing into her pillow. When he checked, she was clutching his old dog tags, the chain wrapped around her small fist like armor. "Don't let them take me away," she whispered. "Never." "Promise?" "I promise." But after she fell asleep, Gabe sat alone at the kitchen table. The house felt smaller, the walls pressing in. Tomorrow, strangers would decide if he could keep the only family he had left. He found himself on his knees on the cold linoleum, hands clasped, reaching for words that wouldn't come. Finally, only the simplest prayer emerged, raw and desperate. "Lord, don't let me lose her. She's all I got. And I'm all she's got. Please, don't let me lose her." The refrigerator hummed, the clock ticked. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed someone else's emergency, demanding attention while his own crisis waited for morning's harsh light. 2 days later, the Jefferson County Courthouse smelled like floor wax and fear. The hearing room was too small, with flickering fluorescent lights that made everyone look sick. Gabe straightened his only suit, the one from his daughter's funeral, and tried not to think about that parallel. "Remember what we discussed?" Maya whispered, arranging papers. Short answers. Don't elaborate unless I signal you. Lydia sat beside him in her Sunday dress, the blue one with tiny flowers. Ruth had braided her hair that morning, fixing a white bow at the end. She hadn't let go of Gabe's hand since they'd arrived. All rise. Judge Harrison entered, a thin woman with tired eyes who'd probably seen too many broken families to count. The court reporter's fingers hovered over her keys. We're here regarding the emergency custody review of Lydia Morris, minor child in the care of Gabriel Morris. The state's attorney, a young man with aggressive ambition written across his face, stood first. Your Honor, we have serious concerns about Mr. Morris's judgment. Recently, he administered prescription medication belonging to his granddaughter to another person, leaving the child vulnerable. That person was dying, Maya shot back. Nevertheless, it demonstrates a pattern. The attorney waved a folder. Mr. Morris has a sealed juvenile record including theft and assault. His own daughter struggled with addiction. Objection. His daughter's illness has no bearing, it speaks to the environment he provides. Maya stood, controlled fury in every line. Mr. Morris is a decorated Marine who served 3 tours. He's raised Lydia alone for 2 years, without a single incident. He saved a teenager's life. By endangering his granddaughter. By making a split-second decision that any reasonable, enough. Judge Harrison's gavel cracked. I'll hear from the witnesses. They paraded through. Mrs. Chen from next door testified about Gabe helping her with groceries every week. Charles Bennett described Gabe's dedication at church. But then came the social worker, clipboard in hand, voice professionally neutral. The child appears well cared for, but there are concerns. The recent vandalism suggests an unstable environment. The negative publicity could impact her schooling. That's not Mr. Morris's fault, Maya argued. Fault and consequence aren't always connected, counselor. When they called Lydia for evaluation, she squeezed Gabe's hand so hard her knuckles went white. It's okay, baby girl. Just tell the truth. What if the truth isn't enough? He had no answer. The bailiff led her to a side room where a child psychologist waited. The door closed with a sound-like ending. Across town, in Heartland Grocer's gleaming boardroom, Eleanor faced her own trial. 12 directors sat around polished mahogany, their faces carved from disapproval. You exceeded your authority, Director Williams said, committing company resources without board approval. I committed to compassion, to doing what's right. You committed to liability. Caleb stood at the presentation screen, slides full of risk assessments and negative press clips. Social media sentiment has turned toxic. 3 major suppliers have expressed concern. Share price dropped 2 points. Because we tried to help people? Because you let emotion override judgment. Williams leaned forward. Just like with your son. The words landed like a slap. Eleanor's composure cracked. Don't you dare. You couldn't save him, so now you're trying to save everyone else. But this is a business, not a charity. It's a grocery store. We feed communities. How is teaching CPR? The initiatives are frozen, effective immediately. Williams's voice brooked no argument. And Eleanor, we're scheduling a performance review. I suggest you remember your fiduciary responsibilities. Back at the courthouse, the hearing stretched into late afternoon. Maya had presented everything: service records, character witnesses, Lydia's good grades. But the state attorney kept returning to the leaked records, the pattern of poor judgment, the unstable environment. Finally, Judge Harrison called them back. I've reviewed the evaluation. Lydia is clearly bonded with her grandfather and well cared for. However, given recent events and concerns raised, I'm ordering a 30-day review period. Your Honor, Maya started. During this time, Lydia will be placed with a foster family. Mr. Morris will have supervised visitation twice weekly. The world tilted. Gabe heard Lydia crying from the side room, heard his own voice saying, "No, please," heard Maya arguing about appeals. But it all seemed distant, underwater. They gave him 5 minutes to say goodbye. It's just for a little while, he lied, holding her tight. You promised. You promised they wouldn't take me. I'm going to fix this. I swear. Don't leave me. But the social worker was already there, gentle but firm. Lydia's sobs echoed down the courthouse hallway long after she'd disappeared. Gabe drove home in silence. The house felt like a tomb. Her breakfast bowl still sat in the sink. Her homework covered the kitchen table. Her stuffed rabbit, the one she'd had since she was 3, lay on her bed. He collapsed onto her small mattress, pulling the rabbit close. It smelled like her shampoo, like childhood, like everything he'd failed to protect. 20 miles away, Eleanor stood at her penthouse window, watching the city lights blur through tears she wouldn't let fall in the boardroom. I failed him, she whispered to her reflection. I failed them all. The house breathed wrong without Lydia. Gabe stood in the kitchen doorway, staring at her math workbook spread open on the table. Page 47. Fractions. She'd drawn tiny hearts in the margins, turned the number 8s into snowmen. Her pencil lay where she'd dropped it 3 days ago, racing to show him something on her tablet. The sweater she'd worn to church hung over the couch arm, pink with sequined butterflies. She'd begged for it at Target, worn it 3 times that week. He picked it up, held it close. Still smelled like her grape bubble gum, and that coconut shampoo she insisted made her hair swooshy. In the bathroom, her toothbrush stood in the holder, purple sparkles, worn bristles because she brushed too hard, despite his reminders to be gentle. Her step stool by the sink. The Johnson's baby shampoo he still used because the tear-free formula meant no crying during hair wash, even though she insisted she was too old for baby products. He tried to pray in her room. Knelt beside her bed like they did every night, her on one side, him on the other. But the words wouldn't come. What did you say to God when he let them take your baby girl? The knock came soft, hesitant, Ruth's voice through the door. Gabe, we brought soup. He opened the door to find them both there, Ruth with a steaming pot wrapped in towels, Charles carrying his worn Bible and a paper bag. Don't have much appetite. Didn't ask if you were hungry. Ruth pushed past him, heading for the kitchen. Asked if we brought soup. Different things entirely. Charles settled into the recliner, his movements slow but purposeful. At 81, everything took longer, but he never rushed what mattered. Hard night? Hard night? Hard 3 nights. Gabe sank onto the couch, exhausted. Keep waiting to hear her calling for water. She always needs water right after bedtime. Sometimes I think she just wants to know I'm still here. Ruth ladled soup into bowls, the familiar motions of care that needed no words. Chicken and rice, same recipe she'd made when his daughter died, when his wife passed years before that. Some griefs called for casseroles. The deep ones needed soup. Eat. Ruth, eat first, talk after. The soup tasted like sawdust, but he ate. Charles sat quiet, thumb rubbing the gilt edges of his Bible. Finally, when Gabe pushed the bowl away, the old pastor spoke. David wrote the 23rd Psalm after losing a child. Most folks don't know that. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, that's the one. But here's what people miss. It says, through, not in, through. Charles leaned forward. Valleys don't last forever, son. Even the darkest ones have another side. What if I don't make it through? What if I'm failing her like I failed? The words choked off. Like you failed your daughter? Ruth's voice stayed gentle. Gabriel Morris, you loved that girl through addiction, through recovery, through relapse. You never stopped fighting for her. A lot of good it did. It did a world of good. She knew she was loved. Right to the end, she knew. And Lydia knows too. Ruth pulled a manila folder from her bag, thick with papers. What's this? Read them. He opened the folder. Letters, dozens of them. Different handwriting, different paper, but all addressed to him. The first one, shaky cursive. Dear Mr. Gabe, because of what you taught me, I saved my husband when his heart stopped in our kitchen. 43 years married, and I almost lost him. But I remembered compressions to stayin' alive, just like you showed us. He's alive because of you. Dorothy Chen. His throat tightened. He read the next. My dad works construction. Last week, a beam fell on a new guy. Crushed his chest. He couldn't breathe. Dad did exactly what you taught us at the store class. The kid lived. 22 years old. Baby on the way. They're naming him Gabriel. Marcus Thompson. Another. I'm 78 years old, Mr. Morris. Thought I was too old to learn new tricks. But when my grandbaby choked on a grape, I knew what to do. She's 4. She's alive. God bless you. Ethel Washington, page after page. Each one a life saved, a family preserved, a tragedy prevented. His hands shook. There's more, Ruth said softly. People kept bringing them to church, to the store. Amina's been collecting them. He found Amina's letter near the bottom. You gave me my life twice, once with the EpiPen, once by showing me what courage looks like. I start EMT training next month. Every life I save will be because you saved mine first. Charles's voice rumbled quiet. You think you failed? Son, look at the evidence. Look at the garden you've planted. But Lydia needs you to keep fighting, not to give up in the valley. Gabe held the letters, weight of lives in his hands. Outside, October wind rattled windows. Somewhere across town, his granddaughter was going to bed without his goodnight kiss. But she was alive. She was safe. And this wasn't over. That night, alone in his bed, he pulled out the marine coin Amina had polished. The eagle gleamed in moonlight through curtains. Lydia always insisted, stay open for star wishes. Duty's not finished, he whispered to the darkness. She needs me. They all need me. The coin warmed in his palm, solid as promise, bright as hope. Tomorrow he would rise. Tomorrow he would fight. The valley had another side, and Lydia waited there. He would make it through. Eleanor stood before her office windows, 40 floors above the city, watching dawn paint the river gold. Below, the world stirred delivery trucks, early joggers, the grocery store where everything changed. Her reflection stared back from the glass. Silver hair perfect, suit immaculate, eyes hollow as winter wells. 27 years she'd climbed to this view. 27 years of quarterly reports and profit margins and strategic acquisitions. The mahogany desk behind her held her life's work awards, photos with senators, the IPO bell from Wall Street. None of it mattered now. The boardroom door waited across the hall. Inside, Caleb would already be working the room, his smooth voice painting her as emotional, compromised, dangerous to shareholder value. He'd probably brought charts. Caleb always brought charts. Her assistant knocked. They're ready, Ms. Whitmore. Eleanor straightened her jacket, picked up a single folder, not financial projections or market analyses, but something far more valuable. The boardroom hummed with tension. 12 directors around the polished table, coffee untouched, phones silenced. Caleb stood by the presentation screen, his smile sharp as surgical steel. Eleanor, he gestured to the empty chair at the table's head. We've been discussing the recent disruptions. She didn't sit. The negative press, Caleb continued, clicking his remote. Headlines filled the screen. The liability exposure, the departure from established protocols. The board has concerns. The board, Eleanor said quietly, or you. The numbers don't lie. Another click. Graphs showing stock dips, social media sentiment, risk assessments. Your emotional involvement with this cashier's situation has compromised judgment. The shareholders deserve leadership that prioritizes returns, not feelings. Several directors nodded. Margaret Walsh, the longest-serving board member, cleared her throat. Eleanor, we've valued your leadership, but perhaps it's time to consider, you're right. Silence. Eleanor opened her folder, hands steady now. I have been emotional. I have been compromised. For 27 years, I've been dead inside, and none of you noticed because the quarterly numbers kept climbing. She pulled out a photograph. Her son, 23, bright smile, guitar in hand. This is Michael, my son. He died 4 years ago in a parking lot while strangers filmed him overdosing. 37 people walked past. 14 recorded video. Not one called 911 until it was too late. The room shifted, uncomfortable. Caleb's smile faltered. I blamed him. Blamed the drugs, the strangers, everyone but myself. But the truth? Eleanor's voice cracked, then strengthened. I built this. We built this. A world where liability matters more than life, where people record tragedy instead of preventing it, where a man risks everything to save a teenager and we punish him for it. Eleanor, Margaret started, this isn't about a 17-year-old girl is alive because Gabriel Morris broke our rules. How many aren't alive because everyone else followed them? She spread papers across the table. Not charts or graphs, but letters. Gabe's letters. Dorothy Chen's husband. Marcus Thompson's co-worker. Ethel Washington's granddaughter. Lives saved because one man insisted compassion matters more than compliance. Caleb stepped forward. This is exactly the sentimental. Yes, Eleanor faced him. It is sentimental. It's human. It's the only thing that matters when you're dying alone in a parking lot while strangers point cameras. She pulled out another document, her resignation already signed. I'm not waiting for you to strip my position. I resign, effective immediately. Gasps rippled around the table. Margaret stood. Eleanor, think about what you're... I have thought. For 4 years, I've thought about nothing else. Every night, wondering if one person with CPR training could have saved my son. If one person had chosen compassion over caution. She pulled out the final document. I'm converting my personal shares, all of them, to endow the Breath Project Foundation. Independent of Heartland Grocers. Free CPR training, fair chance employment, community care over corporate profit. That's, Caleb calculated rapidly. That's $43 million. You're committing financial suicide. No. Eleanor gathered her papers, her son's photo. I'm choosing to live. Compassion isn't weakness, Caleb. It's the only legacy worth leaving. She walked to the door, paused. The next time one of you collapses, and statistically, one of you will, I hope someone nearby learned CPR from our program. I hope they choose to help, instead of hiding behind policy. The hallway stretched empty, silent. Her heels echoed on marble, each step lighter. In the elevator, she watched floors fall away 30, 20, 10, ground. The weight of 27 years lifting with each descent. That evening, she drove through Gabe's neighborhood. Small houses, tidy yards, American flags, and autumn wreaths. His porch light glowed warm against October dusk. She knocked. He answered, exhaustion carved deep in his face. Eleanor? She handed him the folder. He opened it, read, looked up, stunned. 43 million? It's not enough. Not nearly enough. But it's a start. Eleanor, your company wasn't mine. Never was. Just borrowed space in a tall building. She met his eyes. I lost my company today. But Gabe? Together we'll save more lives than they ever dreamed. His hand closed around hers, rough, warm, steady. The hands that compressed, counted, refused to give up. Your son would be proud. Maybe. Her voice broke. I hope so. They stood in his doorway, October wind carrying wood smoke and possibility. Behind him, the empty house waited for Lydia's return. Above them, stars emerged like promise. Tomorrow the work would begin. Real work. The work of breath and hope and second chances. Tonight, for the first time in 4 years, Eleanor Whitmore felt alive. Ruth Bennett's dining table disappeared beneath stacks of petitions, phone lists, and markers. 7 church ladies surrounded it, hands moving with practiced efficiency, the same hands that organized bake sales, funeral luncheons, Christmas pageants. Martha, you take Elm Street through Oak. Dorothy, you've got the senior center. Ruth directed traffic while addressing envelopes. And someone please check that Charles hasn't gotten lost in the basement looking for poster board. Found it. Charles emerged, triumphant, arms full of supplies. Also found our protest signs from 1987. Different cause, same spirit. Ruth kissed his cheek. Now who has the phone tree for St. Mary's? Across town, teenagers gathered in the church fellowship hall. Amina stood before them, steady despite everything: the collapse, the hate mail, the graffiti scrubbed from her family's mailbox. We go in pairs. Be polite. Be clear. This isn't about anger. It's about making sure what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else. 16-year-old Marcus raised his hand. What if people slam doors? Thank them for their time. Move on. Some folks need more time to understand. They fanned out through neighborhoods, clipboards in hand, sharing Gabe's story, Eleanor's sacrifice, the vision of a community that chose compassion over caution. By evening, 800 signatures filled Ruth's petitions. Maya Ortiz worked from her kitchen table, laptop glowing, coffee cold. Her op-ed grew with each draft, weaving together threads: Gabe's service, Eleanor's loss, the town's choice between fear and hope. The local paper's editor called within hours of receiving it. This goes front page tomorrow. You sure about naming Caleb Rourke directly? Every word is documented. Then we run it. The next morning, yard signs appeared, first a dozen, then 50, then hundreds. Compassion counts. Heroes don't follow bad rules. Bring back Gabe. Margaret Thompson hammered one into her lawn, her grandson helping. Mr. Gabe taught me CPR, the boy told passing neighbors. Now I know how to save somebody. Heartland Grocer's parking lot thinned. Customers drove 20 minutes to shop elsewhere. The few who entered found shelves fully stocked, aisles empty, cashiers idle. Never seen it this quiet, one clerk whispered. Good, said another. Maybe they'll listen now. Wednesday brought the letter-writing gathering at church. Tables filled the fellowship hall, seniors and teenagers side by side, sharing pens and stories. Dear board members, Agnes Williams read aloud. I am 83 years old. Last week, my husband Harold collapsed in our kitchen. Because Gabe Morris taught me CPR, Harold is alive. Tissues passed hand to hand. The side door opened. A social worker entered with Lydia, approved for a 2-hour supervised visit. She ran to Gabe, launching herself into his arms. Grandpa! He held her tight, breathing in her shampoo and crayon scent. Around them, the room blurred through his tears. I'm okay, she whispered. Mrs. Patterson is nice. She has 3 cats. But I want to come home. Soon, sweetheart. Soon. She pulled back, studying his face with those serious eyes that reminded him of her mother. Are you giving up? Never. Good, because I'm still breathing. She pressed her small hand to his chest. And you taught me that breathing means fighting. Who told you that? You did. Every morning when you do your exercises, you say, pain means you're still fighting, and fighting means you're still breathing. Fresh tears came. He'd never known she listened to his morning routines, his marine mantras muttered against old injuries. Don't give up, Grandpa. You saved Amina. You saved all those people in the war. You saved me every day since Mama died. Lydia, I heard Mrs. Patterson on the phone. She said you're a hero. She's trying to help, but there's rules. Her voice dropped. Stupid rules. Around them, letters accumulated, stories of lives touched, changed, saved. Charles led a quiet prayer. Ruth distributed sandwiches. Amina collected completed letters, organizing them by district. 312 so far, she announced. The social worker checked her watch. Time to go, Lydia. The girl clung tighter. 5 more minutes? I'm sorry. Lydia pulled her butterfly notebook from her backpack. I wrote letters too, at the foster house. 23 of them. She handed him the stack, each page covered in careful cursive. Give them to the judge. Tell her I need my grandpa. He walked her to the door, her hand small in his. At the car, she turned. Remember when Mama was sick? You said Morris's, don't quit. I remember. So don't quit now. The car pulled away. He stood in the parking lot, her letters pressed to his chest, October sun warm on his face. Inside, his phone rang. Maya's name lit the screen. "Gabe? Tomorrow the board meets downtown. Emergency session 2 o'clock. About the boycott?" "About everything. One of their directors collapsed at the country club this morning. Know who saved him?" His breath caught. "Tommy Chen, one of our grocery stockers. Trained in your first CPR class. Silence stretched, electric. Maya, the director, is stable and grateful. And suddenly very interested in reinstating certain programs." Ruth appeared beside him, eyes bright. "How many people can we get downtown by 2? Maya's voice carried a smile. "How many people can the courthouse square hold?" "We'll find out." The room erupted in planning. Phone trees activated. Text chains spread. Social media lit up. Charles raised his voice over the noise. "Folks, one more thing." They turned. "We show them compassion. No anger, no violence. We show them what Gabe taught us, that saving lives matters more than following rules." Nods all around. Ruth squeezed Gabe's shoulder. "Tomorrow, this town speaks." The courthouse square couldn't hold them all. They spilled onto side streets, seniors with walkers inching forward, veterans in worn caps standing straight, children clutching handmade signs twice their size. People before policy. Compassion saves lives. One girl, maybe 7, held a crayon masterpiece, stick figures holding hands around a red heart. Gabe stood at the edge, overwhelmed. Ruth's church friends, Charles's veteran buddies, families from Amina's mosque, the Latino Community Center, all here, all united. "Must be 500, Charles marveled. "More," Ruth said. "Look." A charter bus pulled up. Residents from Sunset Manor nursing home filed out, some in wheelchairs, others gripping canes. Margaret Thompson waved from her wheelchair. "We came to support the man who taught us to save lives." Inside Heartland headquarters, 30 floors up, the emergency board meeting had devolved into chaos. "The boycott's bleeding us dry," one director argued. "Yesterday's sales down 60%. It's emotional blackmail," Caleb countered from his seat against the wall. "We can't bend policy every time someone starts a petition." Director Harrison, silver-haired and stern, leaned forward. The liability, his words cut off. Color drained from his face. His hand clutched his chest. "Bill?" The director beside him grabbed his shoulder. Harrison slumped forward, face hitting the mahogany table. "Oh God, someone call 911. He's not breathing." Chairs scraped. Directors scrambled. Caleb fumbled for his phone. The boardroom door burst open. Tommy Chen, 22, usually stocking produce, rushed in. "Move back!" He'd been delivering coffee to the executive floor, heard the shouting. "I know CPR." "You can't," Caleb started. Tommy was already tilting Harrison's head, checking for breath. Nothing. He laced his fingers, began compressions, counting aloud. 1, 2, 3. Eleanor, sitting as a guest in the corner, stood. He trained in Gabe's program. Let him work. Tommy pumped Harrison's chest, sweat beading. 15 compressions, 2 breaths. Again. "Where are the paramedics?" Someone cried. 5 minutes out, Caleb said. "Keep going, son," Eleanor urged. The room held its breath. Directors who'd voted to freeze the CPR program watched a minimum-wage shelf-stocker fight for their colleague's life. Harrison gasped, coughed. His eyes fluttered. "There you go," Tommy said, rolling him carefully to his side. "Just breathe, sir. Help's coming." Harrison gripped Tommy's hand, wheezing. Alive. The boardroom door opened again. Paramedics rushed in with a stretcher. As they worked, Harrison kept hold of Tommy's hand. "You saved me." "Just did what Mr. Gabe taught me, sir." Silence descended. Directors stared at each other, the weight of irony crushing. Eleanor stood. 30 seconds ago, Bill Harrison was dead. He's alive because Gabriel Morris insisted on teaching CPR to anyone who'd learn, including the young man you pay $12 an hour to stack apples. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the crowd below was visible. signs swaying like wheat. That, Eleanor pointed at Tommy, then at the window, is the fruit of what Gabe began, not liability. Lives. Director Patricia Webb, usually Caleb's ally, spoke quietly. I move to reinstate the CPR program immediately. Second, said Director James, still pale from watching Harrison collapse. All in favor? Every hand rose, even Caleb's, reluctantly. Furthermore, Webb continued, I move to expand both initiatives company-wide, full funding. Mr. Morris reinstated with back pay and a formal apology. Second, all in favor? Unanimous. Again. Eleanor pulled out her phone, typing quickly to Maya. 30 floors below, Maya read the text to Gabe. They did it. Unanimous. You won. The crowd erupted. Strangers embraced. Margaret Thompson wept in her wheelchair. Amina hugged her father. Ruth and Charles held each other. Eleanor appeared at the building entrance, Tommy Chen beside her. She raised her hand for quiet. The board has voted. Her voice carried across the square. The CPR program will expand to every Heartland store. Fair chance hiring begins immediately. And Gabriel Morris returns to work with full reinstatement. The roar could be heard inside the emergency room where Harrison was being treated. He smiled at the nurse. Good news? Sounds like it. Gabe moved through the crowd, accepting handshakes and hugs, until he reached Eleanor and Tommy. You okay, son? Tommy nodded, still shaky. Just did what you taught me. You did perfect. Eleanor touched Gabe's arm. There's more. The board authorized a permanent fund. The Breath Project will outlive us all. Around them, the celebration continued. Children danced, veterans saluted, church ladies sang. Gabe pulled the Marine coin from his pocket, the one Amina had polished, that he'd carried through war and loss and these impossible weeks. It caught the October sunlight, throwing tiny rainbows. He looked up at the sky, past the buildings and noise, to somewhere his daughter might be watching. Thank you, he whispered, for Lydia, for all of this, for Breath itself. Ruth appeared beside him. The judge wants to see you. Tomorrow. 9 sharp. His hand tightened on the coin. Maya says it's good news. The board's decision, Harrison's testimony from his hospital bed. The whole town standing with you, she says the judge has seen enough. Tomorrow, Lydia might come home. Tonight, the town breathed together. 2 days later, Gabe stood in the courtroom, heart hammering against his ribs. The same cramped space that had stolen Lydia now held the promise of her return. Maya Ortiz moved with practiced confidence, calling witnesses one by one. Ruth Bennett took the stand first, her Sunday dress pressed, voice steady. Gabriel Morris raised his granddaughter with more love than most children see in a lifetime. When that girl collapsed at the store, he made the choice any good parent would. He saved a life. Charles followed, leaning on his cane. I've been a pastor 40 years. Never seen a man pray harder for wisdom in raising a child right. Eleanor Whitmore sat straight-backed in the witness chair, her corporate polish softened by genuine emotion. Mr. Morris taught me something I'd forgotten, that courage isn't about following rules. It's about knowing when to break them. His decision saved not just Amina Rahman, but ultimately board member William Harrison. The judge looked up. Mr. Harrison himself wishes to testify. The courtroom doors opened. Bill Harrison entered in a wheelchair, pushed by Tommy Chen. Oxygen tubes ran beneath his nose, but his eyes were clear. Tommy helped him to the witness stand. Your Honor, Harrison's voice rasped but carried. 2 days ago, I was dead. This young man, he gestured at Tommy, brought me back using CPR he learned from Gabriel Morris. Without that training program, I'd be in the ground instead of this chair. He turned to Gabe. I voted to freeze your program. I was wrong. Dead wrong, turns out. A dry chuckle. You didn't just save one life with that EpiPen. You started something that saved mine, too. The judge made notes, her expression thoughtful. Maya stood for closing arguments. Your Honor, the state claims Mr. Morris showed poor judgment using his granddaughter's EpiPen. But look at the results. Amina Rahman is alive. William Harrison is alive. Dozens of citizens now know CPR because Gabriel Morris chose compassion over caution. That's not poor judgment, that's exceptional judgment under extraordinary circumstances. The opposing attorney tried to argue about regulations, proper channels, the risk to Lydia. The words fell flat in a room full of people Gabe had touched. Judge Patricia Hendricks removed her glasses, studying Gabe directly. "Mr. Morris, please stand." Gabe rose, legs unsteady. "In 30 years on this bench, I've seen parents make all kinds of choices, some from fear, some from anger, some from neglect." She paused. "You made yours from love. Love for a teenage girl you'd never met. Love for a community that needed leadership, and above all, love for your granddaughter, who you trusted would understand why you had to share her medicine." She smiled gently. "Mr. Morris, you have demonstrated extraordinary parental judgment under duress. Not only is custody fully restored, but this court commends you for modeling the kind of moral courage we desperately need." Her gavel struck. Case dismissed. Lydia flew from the social worker's side, sneakers slapping the floor. "Grandpa!" Gabe dropped to his knees, catching her full force. She sobbed into his shoulder, her small body shaking. "You're home, baby girl," he whispered, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. "You're home. I knew you'd win. I knew it. You were brave. So brave." Around them, the courtroom erupted. Ruth wept openly. Charles thumped his cane in approval. Maya squeezed Gabe's shoulder. Even the bailiff smiled. Eleanor watched from the back row, pressing a handkerchief to her eyes, her other hand flat against her heart. When Gabe looked up, their eyes met. She nodded, once a blessing, a thank you, an understanding between souls who'd both lost children and found purpose in saving others. Tommy Chen helped Harrison toward the door, but the older man stopped. "Morris." Gabe stood, Lydia's hand locked in his. "My grandson's turning 10 next month. Think you could teach him what you taught Tommy?" "Be honored to." That evening, their small kitchen glowed with warmth. Water bubbled on the stove. Gabe stirred spaghetti while Lydia set the table 2 plates, 2 forks, 2 glasses of milk. Everything exactly where it belonged. "Hey, Grandpa, knock knock. Who's there?" "Interrupting cow. Interrupting cow. Moo." She dissolved into giggles. He laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. They ate spaghetti with too much Parmesan, talking about school, about Amina's EMT classes starting soon, about the CPR training scheduled for Saturday. "Can I help teach the little kids?" Lydia asked, twirling noodles. "You'd be perfect for that." After dishes, they sat on the couch watching cartoons, Lydia tucked against his side. During commercials, she chattered about her friend's birthday party, her science project on butterflies, whether they could get ice cream tomorrow. Normal. Beautifully, impossibly normal. At bedtime, Lydia brushed her teeth, changed into pajamas covered in stars. She climbed into bed, then reached for something in her pocket. The marine coin. Polished bright. She placed it carefully on her nightstand, next to the picture of her mom. "This belongs here now," she said. Gabe sat on the bed's edge, tucking the quilt around her. "Yes, it does. Grandpa, we did good, didn't we? Helping people?" "We did. Mom would be proud." His throat tightened. "She would. She is." Lydia yawned, eyes already heavy. "Love you to the moon. And back again." He kissed her forehead, turned off the lamp. In the doorway, he paused, watching her settle into sleep. The coin caught streetlight through the window, standing guard. The house breathed again. 3 weeks later, the senior center hummed with purpose. Folding chairs arranged in neat rows held an unlikely congregation, Korean War veterans next to young mothers, teenagers beside retired teachers, immigrant families sharing armrests with third-generation locals. Gabe stood at the front, sleeves rolled up, demonstrating chest compressions on a red training dummy. Someone had taped a name tag to its chest. Hope. 30 compressions, then 2 breaths, he said, hands stacked, shoulders aligned. Push hard and fast, about 2 inches deep. Lydia stood beside him in her favorite purple dress, counting aloud with perfect rhythm. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Her voice carried clear and confident. The little girl who'd once feared losing her grandfather now taught others how to save lives. Remember, she added, sounding older than her 10 years, you might break ribs. That's okay. Broken ribs heal. Dead doesn't. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Mr. Chen, the pharmacist, raised his hand. How do we know if we're pushing hard enough? Lydia demonstrated, her small hands pressing firmly. Hope makes a clicking sound when you do it right, see? Click, click, click. If you hear that, you're saving someone. In the third row, Maria Santos translated for her elderly parents, their faces serious with concentration. Her father had survived a heart attack last year. He understood the value of every compression. Amina moved between participants, adjusting hand positions, her movements sure and practiced. The dark circles under her eyes had faded. Color bloomed in her cheeks again. Everyone, can I share something? She waited for quiet. I got my acceptance letter yesterday. Full scholarship to the EMT program, starting this fall. Applause erupted. Ruth Bennett wiped her eyes with a handkerchief, while Charles thumped his cane against the floor in approval. None of this happens without Mr. Gabe, Amina continued. He didn't just save my life with that EpiPen. He showed me what I want to do with the life he gave back to me. Eleanor Whitmore worked the room's edges, no longer the distant CEO but a woman transformed. She wore simple slacks and a Breath Project polo shirt, greeting each person by name. When old Mrs. Kim struggled to kneel beside the practice dummy, Eleanor dropped down first, patting the floor beside her. We'll do this together, Eleanor said. They counted compressions in accented English and Korean, 2 women who'd lived through different wars finding common ground in the rhythm of artificial heartbeats. Near the supply table, Caleb Rourke stacked chairs for the next session. He moved quietly, efficiently, avoiding eye contact. But when a veteran's wheelchair caught on a chair leg, Caleb rushed to help, gentle and quick. Thank you, son, the veteran said. Caleb nodded, throat working. 3 weeks ago, he'd tried to destroy Gabe. Today, he built what Gabe had started. Ruth and Charles manned the refreshment table, cookies, arranged on paper plates, coffee brewing in the ancient percolator that had served 1,000 church gatherings. Sugar cookie? Ruth offered to everyone who passed. Charles made them from his mother's recipe. Secret ingredient is nutmeg, Charles confided to anyone who'd listen. Tommy Chen, the shelf stalker who'd saved William Harrison, led a group of teenagers through infant CPR, using smaller dolls. His cousin filmed not for social media glory, but to create training videos for those who couldn't attend. Babies need gentler compressions, Tommy explained. 2 fingers, not your whole hand. The afternoon light slanted through windows, painting golden squares on the linoleum. Someone had opened a window. Spring air carried the sound of children playing in the park next door. All right, everyone, Gabe called. Let's run through one complete scenario. Mrs. Patterson, you're walking through the grocery store. Mr. Williams, you're going to collapse. Everyone else, watch how Mrs. Patterson responds. They acted it out, the collapse, the call for help, the compressions beginning. Mrs. Patterson's arthritis made kneeling painful, but she persevered, counting steadily while her husband of 52 years pretended unconsciousness on the floor. 28, 29, 30. She sat back, breathing hard, triumphant. The room applauded. Mr. Williams opened one eye. Did I die? Not on my watch, his wife retorted. Laughter filled the space, warm and healing. As the session wound down, Charles raised his hand for attention. Before we close, might we share a moment of gratitude? People joined hands without hesitation, wrinkled fingers interlacing with smooth ones, calloused palms meeting soft ones. The circle stretched around the room's perimeter, encompassing every soul present. Charles's voice, weathered by decades of sermons, rose gently. Thank you, Lord, for the breath we share and the courage to pass it on. Thank you for bringing us together not in fear, but in love, not in judgment, but in service. May we carry this spirit into our streets, our stores, our homes. Amen. Amen, the room echoed, hands squeezed before releasing. People began gathering coats, making plans for next week's session. Same time next Saturday, Eleanor announced. We'll start teaching children's classes too. I'm helping with those, Lydia piped up. Gabe swept her onto his shoulders in one smooth motion. She shrieked with delight, her laughter bright as wind chimes. From her perch, she could see the whole room, the conversations continuing, the hugs exchanged, the community knitting itself together one heartbeat at a time. Look, Grandpa, she said, arms spread wide. Look at what we made. He looked, really looked. Ruth teaching Maria's mother to count compressions in Spanish. Eleanor and Caleb folding tables together, their old antagonism replaced by quiet cooperation. Amina showing Charles how to position his hands despite his arthritis. Tommy and his grandfather practicing on hope, 3 generations of Chen men learning to save lives, the town breathing together. Yeah, baby girl, he said, voice thick, look what we made. If you enjoyed the story, I handpicked this next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.